Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Concussion Discussion Series brought to you by Integrated Brain Centers. I am your host, Amy Zellmer from Faces of TBI. And today I am excited to share with you Dr. Maggie Yu from Transform with Maggie Yu MD. And today we're going to be talking all about hormones and autoimmune after concussion or TBI. And this is a topic that is not talked about. So I'm so happy to have you here today, Dr. Maggie.
I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm just thrilled that you, among other, especially in the field of functional neurology, are actually tying these pieces together that are utterly missing in the care of TBI recovery. Nobody's talking about hormones, and nobody's certainly talking about autoimmunity, and no one is talking about why some people get better quicker and some people don't. So this is really an important topic, and I'm just thrilled to be here.
Mm-hmm. I'm thrilled to have you here. And honestly, I only recently discovered you, and I'm like, oh, this is the perfect fit for what we're doing. And you know, in my Facebook group all the time, people are talking about, especially women, like, I don't have my period anymore, or, now I have a heavy period, or I'm super hormonal, or, like all these different things that are
brain
like
fog.
They have to be related, right? The only commonality is we all bonked our head, but the doctors tell us we're fine.
But we all bonk our head, but why do some people really have no recovery or worsening? And there's a huge hormonal component that's missing from this conversation that women and men inherently know is a piece of this, but no one believes them.
Yeah. So, where would you like to start it? Like, maybe what's the missing piece? Like, why are some people more inclined to recover than others?
I'm going to go just a minute into my own journey in this. And I think that a lot, because for me, I'm an MD, right? I started as a family medicine MD, first 10 years of my career. And then I went into severe postpartum depression, worse with each child. Then I went into premature menopause and became a hormone specialist as a result of it, only to discover why I was only partially getting better, but not fully getting better from so many symptoms. I mean, I was struggling with fibromyalgia, severe pain, depression, anxiety, brain fog, diagnosed with having ADD. I don't have it. Okay. And severe joint problems, all these things, right? Mystery illness, worse and worse over time. Only to discover later that there was also a missing link besides hormone balance of autoimmunity, which really contributed to my full recovery. So as an MD who went through this hell myself, and knowing with that training, my first 10 years as a conventional MD, that there's no answers. That is because these are complicated root cause issues, and there's no answers in conventional medical training to address these complex issues. And we are just literally ignoring these symptoms, these diagnoses or lack thereof, and these women and men that are suffering with this. So being one of them, then I went and I tackled the whole field and learning about functional medicine. Functional medicine didn't exist at that time when I was 36. I'm 50 right now. And so the past 14 years since my first 10 years, and I've been in practice for 24 years, I'm dating myself, has been really the pursuit of how these pieces tie together. We now call it functional medicine, but that's been a 14-year journey. And this is why I have a program now for hormone balancing and a program for autoimmunity. That's a functional medical approach that's based on all the MD smarts and all the holistic side of medicine that's using data that makes sense together. And there is room for this. And that is why I'm in this field. And that's why I think we're finally in this conversation together, is that is the missing link, is that there is really no training in conventional medicine for a out-of-the-box approach to this. We are only teaching doctors how to provide medication and procedures and diagnostics, nothing on root cause.
Yep. And talking about ADD, and I remember being told I had ADD, and there's the term that some doctors will use is TBI-induced ADD, which is a bogus diagnosis. It's not a real thing.
You are right.
So, it's incredibly frustrating. And you bounce from doctor to doctor and don't get any answers.
Amy, there's also menopause-induced ADD. What the hell is that?
We're just all hysterical, right?
That's the imbalance that's real, that in conventional medicine doesn't exist. So you're going to give us a freaking label. You're just postmenopausally ADD all of a sudden. Been there, done that. No, I don't have ADD. Thank you very much.
Yeah. You don't just suddenly develop ADD. There's something else going on. Yeah. So, maybe a really good place to start is, what is autoimmune? It's a term that I think most people have heard, but maybe don't even know what it means.
Okay, great. Autoimmunity is where your immune system is supposed to work for you. But in many people's cases, your immune system, which is supposed to look at germs or cancer outside your body and say, you're a germ, you're a cancer cell, I'm going to kill you. That's normally what your immune system should do. But in autoimmunity, something is triggering that immune system identifies part of your own body, your own self, as a germ, and it's actively trying to kill it. And that can take thousands or even hundreds of thousands of targets in each person. So if you think about it, in celiac disease, it's part of the gut, right? In, let's say, multiple sclerosis, we know it's part of the brain. In RA, we know it's part of the joint. But the issue is that what we're finding is there's been a 7 to 11-fold in the increase in autoimmunity since the 1940s. And there's multitude of factors because the genetics are staying the same, right? But what are some of the other factors that's turning on this autoimmune attack against self 7 to 11 times fold? And there's a multitude of environmental factors that's contributing to it, dietary. There's a lot of issues that are going to this, but we are seeing a dramatic rise in autoimmunity, and the problem, it's 7 to 11 times increase.
That's
and
insane.
The problem also too is we've probably only identified less than 5% of autoimmune diseases. And here's a harrowing fact, is that we in data have identified in studies that there's just in the thyroid gland alone 8,000 targets of autoimmune attack. We only have blood tests for 3 of them. So my question is, how many people do you think have autoimmune disease of just the thyroid alone don't even know it because the testing doesn't exist for it?
Wow.
So we've only identified probably less than 1% of people even with autoimmune thyroid problems. And if you have one diagnosis, your body's already mistaking, let's say your thyroid or your joint as being foreign and attacking it. What's likely it's going to mistake hundreds of other targets in your body as foreign? 100%. So nobody, even with a diagnosis, have just one autoimmune disease. They literally have hundreds of targets. And that's why they have so many mystery illnesses and symptoms that we ignore, because they're going to see their conventional rheumatologist and they're wondering why they have ADD-induced, postmenopausally induced brain fog or depression or no libido. The rheumatologist doesn't care and doesn't know that they're all other targets of autoimmune attack. And same with TBI. You just seen your TBI doctor. They don't know that there's a high chance that you're not recovering as quickly because maybe there's autoimmunity in your history, or you may have mystery illness symptoms that are autoimmune related that cannot even be diagnosed. So it's literally a huge missing link and a holy grail that's missing piece for a lot of people because testing is so far behind and understanding is so far behind.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, autoimmune is often like, people just are like, oh, whatever. She's just like a hypochondriac.
He's quite
and just thinking to the thyroid, just the thyroid alone, right? Like weight gain or weight loss and hair thinning and your fingernails. Like there's just so many little signs that we might have of what's going on with our thyroid.
Some people have just Hashimoto's, autoimmune disease of thyroid or Graves', but yet they have joint pain. They have hormonal hell. They have endometriosis. They have infertility. They have depression. I mean, and they're going to see their endocrinologist for their thyroid dose adjustment. Meanwhile, the 10 other symptoms have nothing to do with this? Or is it just all part of the same picture? They're all part of the same picture. And it's a pattern I see thousands and thousands of times every single year over and over again repeat itself. But these are patterns that are completely missed. So we don't just have a thyroid problem. We have a systemic autoimmunity or multi-system inflammatory problem that affects many different targets.
So what are some of the things that you are looking at when a patient comes to you? What are some of the first things you're going to look at?
Yeah, the thing is that these patterns. So I can't even, it sounds funny, but half the time I tell people when we have an online program. So our program is completely done online, whether it's our hormonal program or it's our autoimmune program. And in some of our phone calls where we actually talk to clients initially to evaluate it, the major thing that we ask is really an awareness that they have a lot of symptoms. Like somebody might think, I'm calling you about Hashimoto's and I want to talk about it. We literally you got joint pain, you got brain fog, where the heck are your hormones? How do you sleep at night? How are your relationships? What's your functional level? Okay. You've been diagnosed with ADD. You have a kid with autism. Okay. These are questions doctors just don't ask because what the heck does it have to do with Hashimoto's? Has an endocrinologist ever asked you that if you have Hashimoto's? Hell no, because they don't even think it's related. But the reason we ask that is because I like to assess what is this patient's educational and awareness level in natural medicine and functional medicine to even be aware that these are all tied, because that's what I teach. I actually teach people how all these pieces tie together. So those are the questions I ask is, what are all the other pieces? And sometimes timeline matters. Why is the median age that people are diagnosed with autoimmune diseases 46? Because it's a huge hormonal trigger. Why is postpartum another time when it's actually the onset of all these symptoms? Why do TBI victims at that age group not improve? Why, if it's linked around postpartum, do they not improve? So those timeline pieces are also things that I ask because they are part of the pieces of the pattern. And when I show people this pattern, their minds are blown because they're like, no one has ever tied these pieces together.
Yeah. And, it's like the TBI world, well, you can walk and talk, so you're fine. So you have memory problems. Oh, you have brain fog. Oh, you have depression. Oh, it's just, it's just depression. It's all in your head. Here's
all good.
Here's Ritalin and antidepressants is basically what I was given. And I'm like,
what I was put on. Yes. As a doctor, that's what I was put on. I knew I didn't need antidepressants and I knew I didn't need ADHD medications yet. That's what I got. And that's what I was prescribing for people until I figured out they don't work. They make things worse. 30 pounds later.
Yeah, 30 if you're lucky.
Yes, I've been on all those antidepressants and ADHD meds. Not to mention,
it's so frustrating.
And all those pain meds and brain meds, and it's insane how many meds we have that actually make people worse.
Yeah. I mean, even just like the meds for headaches. Well, if it's not helping your headache, it's not working, right? Like, don't take it.
But on these headache medicines for years.
Yes.
Sometimes even causing addiction, stomach ulcers.
Yeah.
What we call rebound headaches, especially with migraine meds. We are creating more problems with these medications, and we keep telling people to take it every single day, sometimes even.
So are you finding with TBI patients, are you finding that the ones who are struggling to recover have an underlying autoimmune issue going on?
A very high percentage of them absolutely do. And that's why for me, I think I want to raise the awareness for people to have a higher suspicion themselves, even if their doctors are not trained to that there's an autoimmune issue. So I want you guys with TBIs that are not recovering or struggling with recovery to think about, man, is it tied with my periods? Is this tied with postpartum? Is this tied to 35 to 50 perimenopausal times? Do I have a history of hormonal problems with PCOS, endometriosis, fibroids, right? Mm-hmm. Have I been diagnosed with ADD, ADHD? Do I have a kid with ADHD or autism spectrum? Because those are actually linked with autoimmunity, and it's genetic. If you have a kid or yourself have been diagnosed with ADHD or autism spectrum, okay, if there's a family history of autoimmunity, anybody in your family with autoimmune disease, okay, did you even know diabetes is an autoimmune disease? Okay, so if there's even one member of your direct family has autoimmune disease, your likelihood that there's an autoimmune component in your health goes up. Like if you're a woman, it goes to like 80-90% certainty from my experience. If you're a man, it's at least 50 to 60%, even if one member of your family has autoimmune disease. So the biggest piece, I mean, if there's a cutout, I want you to cut out what I just said and put in the beginning of the interview to be like, people, I want you guys, even if your doctors don't know, you need to know. These are signs that are pointing to an autoimmune component to your health recovery process that isn't happening. The connections are not being made.
And I mean, there's help. There's things that can be done. There's things that you can do.
So much.
You don't have to suffer.
You do not have to suffer, which is why for me, when I point out these connections to people and I actually say, hey, like for us, we have a 2-month online program for autoimmunity where I literally look at what are the pieces of autoimmunity that are triggering the autoimmunity that you can identify using your data. So you have cause and effect, fix it so it never occurs again. So, I think about, just even think about the 5 pillars of a program. I think about, number 1 is going to be hormones. Number 2, we have a unique process of food mapping, which identifies which foods is triggering the autoimmune disease. It's not another freaking elimination diet. I'm giving you data to show you which foods is triggering the autoimmune attack, right? There's gut healing. There's blood sugar mastery. How people don't even know in TBI how important blood sugar mastery. I'm not talking dabbling my blood sugars are fine, I'm eating healthy. I'm talking blood sugar mastery is required in TBI recovery. And that's a huge part of our autoimmune program, is how do you master? What does that mean? What does that even mean, right? And gut healing, vitamins and minerals. So there's other components to this. But when you can identify with data in each of those categories what's triggering that autoimmune attack, that's the only way you're going to have remission in the autoimmune attack, and that promotes the recovery of TBI or any other neurological condition.
And I mean, I don't want to oversimplify it, but it's kind of that simple. I mean, right? Like,
simple, but not easy.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a difference. It's so simple that it's elegant. Okay, but that doesn't mean it's easy, because if you think about, I mean, even my own journey to discover what that is and then to teach it to people. Our program is not like, oh, you see me in a clinic and every 6 months and we call it good. We're an intensive 2-month online program that actually have all these pieces of testing and training involved. There's tons of time I spend training people to be the pilot, not the passenger. To be dependent on their docs? Hell no, right? Because they're really, an expert like this, expertise like this just isn't out there. Right? So I actually have to teach our clients how to do this. And this is why we have an online program instead of a clinic setting, because it works better. This is an educational program, right? We can't be dependent on doctors to do that. So this is how we do that. And it is simple and elegant in its design, but it is not easy. It takes a lot of commitment, work, focus, and learning how these connections. It wasn't easy for me. Sounds easy now, but it took me as an MD, I'm 24 years in practice.
Yeah.
Right? It took me a long time to learn this and to put it together and then to teach it. Right?
Yeah. You said to teach you to be the pilot, not the passenger. Mm-hmm. And that's such a powerful statement right there. Like, you need to be the one in control, and you need to take control of your health and your recovery, because nobody else can do it for you. You know, you can give them the tools, but they still have to be willing to do it. And
I find that in this complex world of TBI, in this complex world of autoimmunity and people with autoimmunity and TBI, there's no one out here to save you. There's very few people in the planet qualified to actually save you. So you better take that initiative to be the pilot and find the right mentors to teach you how to do that reliably. Is going to be the key, period. There's no other way out of this, because there really are very few experts in the world that really understand how to put these pieces together. And
I know that you also work with functional neurology, and there's such a complementary, so talk just a little bit about that too.
Well, if you think about like functional neurology, it's really looking more at the root causes, what's causing this problem. They're not just here to say, here's a pill. They're saying, what is causing this problem and how do we fix that root cause? And I love the fact that, you know, I work with functional neurologists. I have a great deal of respect for it. I refer clients to collaborate with functional neurologists all the time. And the thing is that and functional neurology is great. However, it's even better if someone has hormone problems or autoimmune problems paired with a functional hormonal balance approach and a functional autoimmune approach. You're literally getting the triple threat.
Yes.
Right? Because what are additional root causes besides those that are linked with neurology, right? TBI victims and people with autoimmunity aren't just dealing with neurological symptoms. There are tons of other symptoms and triggers that would pair really marry well with the functional neurology approach, because then you're actually looking at the whole person. This didn't just change your brain. This literally had an impact on many, if not all your organ and hormonal making systems.
So powerful. And you're absolutely right. If someone has an underlying autoimmune or hormonal problem, they're not going to get better doing any you can do all the treatments and take all the medicines, and it's not going to have an effect until you get to that root problem.
I'm going to give you an example of my patient, Brianna. She was a 20-year-old that got into a motor vehicle accident, and she was seeing a regular neurologist who gave her 2 meds that didn't help. A year later, she finally sees me and starts working with a functional neurologist, right? And the piece that I noticed was that there was never a hormonal piece to this, and her family is full of autoimmune issues. So what I did was really, over a course of 2 months of working with her, the first thing I did was actually look at hormone balance in her. And I realized that her hormones were completely out of whack. Literally within about 2-3 weeks of actually balancing her hormones, for the first time in a year, she was able to actually even watch some television for like 5 minutes or read a book, right? You don't get dramatic turnarounds like that unless, and this is like even a year out. So, think about if you even have someone very early in TBI and they get in early with a functional neurologist and working with a hormonal expert. Like if she had been started on that hormone balance protocol and had her hormones measured in data like a year before, how much more recovery do you think she could have had?
Right.
And I even have men post MVA with severe brain fog, TBI, that I will measure hormones. And one guy in particular gave some progesterone to, and literally within 48 hours was like, oh, like his normal mental self, And so we don't even really, you gave a guy progesterone? Well, yeah. Did you measure it? Did you see it? Did you look at the data? Have you actually looked at the role of progesterone in TBI? No, but yet, doctors are perfectly willing to throw them on ADD medications, Ritalin,
right.
Cymbalta, whatever, or pain meds, whatever the hell it is. And they don't really address the core issue, which is hormones play a big role in recovery of neurological issues. Hormone balance is really important in the healing of neurological issues, period.
So important.
Yeah.
And so, Dr. Maggie Yu, this has been such a great conversation, and we could talk for days about this.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure people can get in touch with you. And we have all the links below this video, but your website is drmaggieyu.com, and they can find you on Facebook with your Facebook group.
Our Facebook group is called Transform Autoimmune Disease Naturally. And it literally, we are currently at already 30,000 members. And it is one of the largest groups on Facebook to support autoimmunity and hormone balance, period. And we have hundreds of trainings and videos in the group that are free for people.
All free.
Free. Okay. So
you have so much information in there.
We have free units and modules in the Facebook group themselves. If you wanted to learn about the role of rheumatoid arthritis and hormones, go look, there's free trainings in there. If you want to look at the role of ADD and autoimmunity, guess what? We have videos on that. So over the past several years, I've done so many interviews and trainings, and we have had so many clients speak about their journey. Go in there. It's free. It's called Transform Autoimmune Disease Naturally. It's a great way to connect and learn so much more.
Yeah. And they can find you on social media at Dr. Maggie Yu. Yeah. And again, your website is drmaggieyu.com. So thank you so much for being here today and just sharing all of your information with our listeners. I really appreciate you taking the time.